Welcome to Honestly Speaking, a safe place to be unsafe. Life commentary and dialogue from a biblical, logical, cultural, and comical perspective.
Today we'll be talking about what makes a man. Next question. All right, my man.
Go ahead, Jonas.
It says, is virginity something that you were taught to be proud of and to value? Brother Dante.
I have a really long answer for this.
Go ahead.
No. That's it. No.
Why not? Why do you think you weren't?
First, I wasn't raised in a Christian household.
Okay.
And so our morals, not to say that only Christians value virginity, that's not true.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you think that's the case?
I think that's it's like a taboo thing in a lot of Christian households, and you want to hold it and save it like a get out of jail free card. But I think in my home, there were a lot of things that were commonplace growing up, and they just were what they were. We weren't encouraged to have sex at a young age or encouraged to lose our virginity. We were encouraged to focus on being successful, on, making sure we have our grades right, making sure we represent the family well, make sure those types of things. So we had other morals that were more highlighted. So sex and virginity, and it wasn't that it wasn't necessarily valued. But again, I was raised in a household, Uncle Luke was on, at the barbecue. And so,
That's right. What's that number one zodiac sign?
Right. So you kind of like the movies back in the day were a little bit more, So it's just like, it was just whatever, to be honest with you. If I have to think back, did I ever have a talk or a lesson or be proud that you've been chaste as a young virgin son? No, none of that. It was just,
Yeah.
Jonas. Sorry, I got knocked out the group for a second. I had to jump back in. But so virginity was something that it wasn't taught. But I grew up in church, so it was like you're not supposed to do it, even though people do it. And I was the person who said. So I was scared into not having sex before marriage. I thought that I was going to die as soon as I did it. Probably. When I got married, that was the first time.
Oh, that's excellent.
But it was like, it was like, yo, this. Yeah. And then it got to a point where it's like, all right. I got from being scared to saying like I've waited this long. It was never like to almost like, yo, I'm a better Christian than you guys at it because I can control myself. But it was like, no, I was scared I was going to die. I thought that I was going to do it and then I was have a heart attack in the middle. And so
or the rapture was going to happen before you could get a chance to do it. And you like that.
You could have waited. Like
throwing your crown down at his feet out of anger, man.
So, but no, for me, it was just like it got my transitions were fear. Then like you're like you waited this long, and then it was just like this can now be a something I could pass, like a conversation I can have with my son. As he goes through some of this, like, even though his mom and I are divorced, like, I can still have, like, oh, here are the things that I did and that we did leading up to our marriage, you know? So as a legacy type situation.
Right. I think that virginity for guys typically, and at least the guys in where I grew up, so just to give you a bit of a background on myself, not only am I the eldest and the only girl, I have 5 younger brothers. I'm actually the only female in my family for a 7-year radius, both above and below. So I don't have a first cousin or a second cousin biologically. I have like other cousins, but a first cousin that is within my age range, within 7 years above or 7 years below me. There were some other ones that I would see every now and again, but for the most part, and on my dad's side alone, I have like 21 first cousins. So like, that's just letting you know, like we come from a big family and I speak Guy pretty well. I tell people that. Now, I don't think that means that I'm like some dude maleness expert or something like that, because I don't think that's the case, hence this conversation. But one of the things I realized growing up, especially in Philadelphia, inner city, virginity was something that once guys realized they were trying to get rid of like it was the plague. And the thing was, they were trying to get rid of it with a girl who had not gotten rid of it. And then once they got rid of it with her, she was no longer useful. She was like a means to an end to remove this disease of leprosy called virginity. And then they would go and look for a pure and chaste girl that wouldn't give it up to them. Like it created this ridiculous, vicious cycle. It reminds me of this quote from the movie The Breakfast Club, when like this girl is teasing Molly Ringwald, who actually confesses she's a virgin, and she's like, it's a catch-22, right? She said, you're a prude if you never had sex, but the moment you say that you're a, she said but you're a whore the moment you say that you did have sex. And it's kind of like this double standard that we have with men and women, and we've seen it carry on in various spheres. Like there is no, like you can call a man a thought, but it really doesn't do anything. Like for instance, there's literally no psychological term for a nymphomaniac as for a male. It literally is only for females. Like when you think about that, and I know men who have sex addictions, you know, like LL, he talked about all these things. And so I do think that at the core of it, it goes back to what Dante said earlier about understanding the origin. And if you understand how the creator and who the creator created you to be, you will value yourself accordingly. And unfortunately, and I see this I definitely see the negligence from the church's perspective, from my perspective as a member of the body of Christ. I don't hear many sermons that highlight the beauty of male virginity. I don't hear it. I hear, you know, you want to get a bride chaste. Mm-hmm. Well, who would? Why don't I want a chaste man? And not just that, but I see even in our responses, I'm seeing a couple of people responded by saying, no, virginity wasn't valued, but I've seen so many moral failures that I waited till marriage. And I'm like, wow, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think women are taught to view themselves and view men the way that they were taught to view themselves and view men, meaning, oh, I don't want a virgin. He don't know what he doing. You had to figure it out someday too. You acting like you some sexpert or something. You know, it's just ridiculous. Sexpert. Anyway, next question.
Not a question. Oh, it is a question. Well,
okay.
You gotta read the question. I think this question was, how females be more supportive of males? And so I just grabbed some of the comments. Let me get over there.
And why you're looking for the comments? Jack Drummond.
They here.
While you're looking, okay. Jack Drummond said that he thinks nymphomania is all inclusive. If it is, it's been updated in the recent. Its origin was strictly female. Now it may be updated. There's a number of things going on with the DSM, to which Jack Drummond argued against to get his master's, but that's a whole nother subject. And Say2 said, Lee, I never knew that you're a dude whisperer. I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but I do know that you lying, you know, because you my brother. So whatever. All right, next.
We on this. So you gotta read through some of these comments.
Okay. So what was the question?
How
females be more supportive of males?
Stop judging. That's I saw that. Listen, I'm reading the ones with I listen.
I'm sorry.
I'm reading the short ones.
I looked at one short when it popped up, and I was like, "Oh, that's the first thing he said." They said finances. Stop with all these $40. All this $40 you asked for.
Cut the check and cut back on spending the checks. So it says stop judging, listening. Listen is important. Positive suggestions. So Dante and Jonas, we're towards the end. Crystal, what were you about to say?
It says allow them to be vulnerable without judgment. Yep.
So this leads me, looking at these responses leads me to my question that's not necessarily written here. Do you think that women have a power to speak to men's hearts in ways that they don't understand? Like, can women build men up or break them down easily with their words?
Yes. Yeah, that's a yes. It's a definite. Do you need any clarification? I don't think you need clarification. It's just a yes.
Yeah. So, and do you think that women?
Hold on. I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, well, growing up, people used to always say certain things about me that weren't nice. And then one day I came to school and I had this like Sixers fitted hat on, and this girl was like, "Yo, you look bad with that hat on." I bought like 5 hats the next day. Build them up.
You look like you worked at Liz. You was out there like you worked at Liz. You had you had the snapback, you had the fitted, you had the 47, the one with the bent up rim and the rips in the front.
I bought 5 hats. And I was like, all right. So, yeah.
And that might, let's be honest, that's the right woman. Because the wrong woman say, you look good in that hat, you gonna throw the hat in the trash. The opposite might
Yeah, the right one said it.
The opposite is true too. If you don't like somebody and they say something like, "Oh, I like you," like mental note. Women go through it all the time at work. Somebody say, "Oh, you look nice in this." You like mental note. Never wear this again. I'm good.
It's going. It's sold. I gave it away.
So women do have the ability to speak, I want to say, life to men in particular ways. Do you think that women know that?
I think. Go ahead. You want to go, Jonas? So before I got married, my dad, pastor of the church that I was at the same time, totally different guys, asked me the same question before I got married. Oh, when I told them I was going out with this person and I was about to propose, they were like, "You have an argument yet?" They said, "If you get a real argument, you gotta know what kind of punches she throws. Gotta know what kind of haymakers is coming, and if you can take it,
right?
And still be there." And I was like, "Oh, all right." And I'm like,
I think women can do to men the equivalent of what that guy did to the girl with the pillow and the sweet.
What words?
With words.
What words?
With the eloquence of a bullet. You understand what I'm saying? You got a sniper living in the house with you. You don't even see, boom, like a blowgun, like boom, and you
can say one thing and it's like this, and then it goes like this. It doesn't pierce the skin. It just goes straight to the heart. And it's like,
yeah. I think it's hard when you have a woman that knows that she can do that, because it speaks to what a lot of these answers are saying. Let me be me so that I can truly be vulnerable without you judging me, criticizing me, or trying to shape me into something else. And then we can go from there.
Right.
Because if you know you can do that, and you're my significant other, my wife, my girlfriend, and I know that you can do that. But even worse, if I know that you can do that, now you got power over me, and not just power over me, but I'm low key. I'm not being the fullness of who I am as a man.
So you believe that she not only has the ability to speak life, but she can kind of speak death in certain ways.
For lack of better words,
she can, for lack of better words, she can say things to you that can stunt you in certain ways. She can't stop you, because what God has for you, hey, is for you. But
I was waiting.
But what she can do is clip your feet. She can throw some roadblocks in your way. The Bible has a lot of proverbs about, dripping faucets, and I'd rather sleep on the roof in the cold.
The corner of the roof.
The corner of the roof. I'm in the corner of the roof. Than being with a contentious, right? So it's letting us know that women, when I read that, initially, I'm like, wait, what? But then I realized this is saying that women have power that they really don't understand. And when we talk about women, we're going to talk about why we don't understand, because I think it connects to men and women as to why we don't understand the power that we have. And just to respond really quick to what Dante said, I don't think that it's as scary for a man to recognize that a woman understands her power as it is for a woman to recognize that a man understands his physical power. It's scary. Like he at any moment, like I don't like super big guys, like guys that look like they can't like wash their back. It's like no offense, if like you all extra D's, like your back is ashy, you have no lotion back, you can't. I don't like them, because I think at some point if we get mad enough, he could like thunderclap my face, like wah, you know what I mean? Like, and I do know that I agree with what your pastor and the father said to you, because I remember this guy that I was talking to, and we liked each other, but he wasn't a Christian. And I had to tell him, no, I can't date you. You're not a Christian. I can't. And he was like, it's just one little thing. I said, listen, you're going to need all the Jesus that you have in order to deal with me. Because I'm going to say something one day that's going to make you want to bang zoom to the moon, Alice.
You a wordsmith too.
And not just that, and I'm going to need all the Jesus in me to not do that to you. I know how God has wired me, and I need all the Jesus in me to not do that to you, because I know what it can do. And I'll wrap it up on with this question on this note. I remember arguing with one of my brothers. He said something to me afterwards. He said, if you were a man, I'd have punched you in the face. And he wasn't threatening me. I know when my brother's threatened, I grew up with, I know he was giving me an insight into his heart. So in that moment, I put the claws back in, the Wolverine claws, because a lot of times people like, cat fight. No, it's more like Wolverine when people go to do stuff. I put them back in, the antimonium went back in the hand. I said, what do you mean? He said, you hit me in ways that I can't hit you back. And my brother...
That was right.
That's a good point. You know what? And that's why a lot of men resort to physical violence, because that's the only way they can hit back. And also, like you're hitting on something that's really personal to me too, because if you are a man and you are hardwired like you, and I'm the same way, where you might say something and I know my words I don't have to do it. That's one of the things Jonas said earlier, and I didn't say it when he said it. He was like, I want to be the biggest guy in the room. My thing is, I always fall back on, oh, I'm the smartest guy in here. So if you got that, if you got a big head for a minute, you might be a big rock. I'm like, I'm smarter than him now. But to your point, when men fall on that bag and the Wolverine claws come out, and this is maybe for another conversation, but sometimes it's like women can do it. You're like, oh man, she killed my soul. Men can do it, and you're a womanizer, you're a narcissist, you're a manipulator, you're a gaslighter, you're every word in the book. And it's kind of like, I'm using my words, because if I was to use my physical strength, I'd be an abuser. If I use my words, I'm not gentle. And I haven't talked about that or worked through that yet, but I know women can shred your soul with some words, right? But if you are a man and you have the same verbiage, the same diction and syntax, and you know how to put a thing together and expose vulnerabilities and then rip the Band-Aid back off and pour some alcohol into the wound, and you do that, men, why would you do that to her? Why would you break her soul like that? And so I think there's a duality of responsibility to guard the vulnerabilities of the other person.
And I love what you just said, because it makes me think, the way I actually learned how to be this vicious at times was actually with a guy who was often the smartest guy in the room. Because in my mind, it is unfair that you can physically best me. I have to be able to do something to bring you to your knees. And he was still sharp with it. And at some point, when God got a hold of my heart, he let me know that man is broken. Mm-hmm. And he only feels tall by making you feel small. Leave him where he is, because when you stoop down to his level, you actually become on his level. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think as a part of defense, and I do think that women, we don't recognize this power, but this power actually came because of threat. I believe even historically, because of threat of physical violence, we had to learn how to finesse certain situations so that we didn't get our head knocked off. You know what I mean? They call the tank tops that people wear wife beaters for a reason. Like we had to learn how to soothe the savage beast that men were taught it was okay to physically be a particular way. So if I am with a man who is my equal in verbiage and he is my superior in physicality, and he wields those things over me, then how am I ever going to be in a healthy situation? So I think you have a lot of women who try to figure out how to hurt a guy. And part of it is because I heard today, and I believe this is true, that men are taught to see women as possessions and not partners. Men are taught to see men as possessions and not partners. And women are taught that their value, they're taught to conflate value with desire. So they're only as valuable as they are desirable. And I think both come from hell and both are wicked.
Mm-hmm. I'll just jump in and say, I already transitioned to the next one.
Great.
All right, but Dr. Emerson Eggridge, he does a lot of seminars on pink and blue. He said women and men see the same thing with different lenses. And it's like, whose job is it to fix something that's broken? He always just said, him and his wife would work together. And they would say, the mature person. And just leave it at that. So, both want to be immature, there's no solution to be found. But when the mature person steps up, that's when things get better.
That's the pink and blue guy, right?
Yeah.
So I met him, right? So I met him in grad school. I went to this conference, and I was just like, oh Lord, I'm going to be single forever. And I remember going with Crystal, and he was speaking at this one particular venue that we went to, and he said, women see the world in pink. And he quoted like all these different studies, right? And then he said, and men see the world in blue. And I turned to Crystal and I was like, I think I'm doomed because I see the world in
purple.
Right? Like I was like, I'm done, right? And so then you had to come back, and I didn't want to come back the second day because I was just like, I can't deal with this whack worldly binary that's been whitewashed with Christianity. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Make it make sense. And so the next day he says, God actually sees things in purple. So I turn to Crystal and say, see, that's how I know I have the gift of singleness, because I don't need to be married. You know what I mean? Like I have evolved beyond marriage, right? So Crystal So Crystal says, whatever, right? And then right after I say that to Crystal, he then says, by the sovereignty of God. And some of us may think that because we see things in purple, that means we're all purple. No, you still need people to flush you out in these areas. And Crystal looks at me and goes, I'm like, shut up, lady. And so afterwards I spoke to him, and I will never forget what he said, because I still felt, I often feel as a female who was socialized around so many men, but still has the inner workings and the heart wirings of a woman that, and I've lived through trauma, and I work with people who have trauma and all this stuff. I have all these different variables and identifiers. I often find it hard to identify completely with certain groups of people. I just do. I'm too Black to be Christian. I'm too saved to be too Black. You know what I mean? Like, it just is. Mm-hmm. And so I go to him and I talk to him and I said, I wasn't going to come back today. And it's because I see things in purple often. I kind of process things like most men process things, but I kind of have the heart and compassion that a lot of women have because I am a woman. And he looks at me and he says, it's because you have the gift of leadership. And he just walks off. And it affirmed and stunned me and gave me this huge weight. And at that moment, I realized that people who are meant to bring people together, and leadership looks different. He ain't say, I think you a pastor, or nothing like that. He said, I think you have the gift of leadership. And what it did was say, for those of us who see things from various lenses, and I'm talking specifically to the people who are listening and are viewing this, and they're like, based off of the responses that you read and you went over, I just feel like I don't fit in. It's because God has hardwired you in a way to be able to speak to people on the outskirts, to be able to speak to the least of these, to be able to speak to the people who are scattered amongst us. Who don't quite fit in the boxes that were not made by God, but were made by man. And so I say that to encourage everyone. And on that note, we're going to move on. The next question was, what can men do to encourage women?
Yes.
Anything stick out to you guys?
Listen, ask questions, support them in their career, give more emotional support, be less angry.
Less angry.
Like, be less hawk.
Listen
and provide. So when I hear listening and communication, I was talking to someone today and I said, communication is important, comprehension is better. So we all say the same words and someone saying the same words, but saying it totally different. All right. They're saying it from a different context. Right. So if someone says, you got to love her. I can love someone the way I know what love looks like, but I don't know what she interprets as love. And so me loving her is really me loving me. And then her loving me is really her loving her. And no one saying like, no, stop loving you. But like, look at me, learn me, and love me.
And that's where the narcissism comes in. Like, that's when you get labeled a narcissist, because a lot of times people don't realize that people are, first of all, we throw out this term narcissism. It is literally a diagnosis. It's not as many people as we think are narcissists. I think we all have narcissistic ways. We all have arrogant ways. We all have very prideful ways. And I think that because we live in a male-dominated world, that things are just going to be geared towards maleness, period. And because we live in a broken world, it's going to be broken maleness that a lot of times men are going to have to speak into to make sure that it gets right side up. That's also part of the reason why we're having this conversation. And I think that what you said, Jonas, the key to it goes back again to nuance and have a base level of conversation. And that's why we're actually having this conversation, because we all speak from a particular vantage point that we assume often that the other people understand. And I'm gonna give you a case in point. You ever go anywhere outside of Philly or out even to different areas in Philly or outside of this country, and they say, oh, you have an accent. And you're like, No, you have an accent. You know, I remember being in London and the girl, she is a beautiful Muslim sister, sees me, and she was from Somalia. And she's like, where are you from? I was like, Philadelphia. She was like Kevin Hart. I'm like, Kevin Hart? Like, that's who you know? Like, okay. But I remember hearing, she's like, I love your accent. And then she said, but where are you from? And I was just like, Philadelphia. She said, no, but where are your people from? I'm from Somalia by way of Denmark. Denmark, right? And I was just like, I don't know. And she was like, why? And I looked at her and I was like, slavery. And I think for the first time, she got it. She got how not only has my American accent been, from my perspective, seen as normal, I come with a culture that has had part of my culture ripped away. And that influences everything we do. So I say all of that to say, when we talk, I want us to remember that we're speaking with an accent, that all of our intersecting identifiers have an accent to them that may seem like they're just natural to us. When I talk to men have a certain way of relating. They get shoulder to shoulder. They don't get like eye to eye. When I talk to women, Crystal, when I'm with Crystal, she like wants to get up in my face and we want to talk. And because I'm like raised around guys, I'm like, ugh, you know? But there are times when I literally just want to lay my head on her shoulder. Like there are certain things that are just natural for us, but it doesn't mean that it's natural for all of us.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me that on here, it's not, I don't see anywhere be self-aware and introspective. I think that's huge. I think that's huge because for a number of reasons. One, because if I'm coming to talk to you, I want you to be able to engage in the conversation and not fix it, but assist with the process, I guess, if that makes sense. But if you're not processing your own stuff, if you're not self-aware of your own stuff, if you're not doing the internal work, what's the point in having a conversation?
Right. Right. Yeah. You should have saw Dante's face. When you said you're not processing your own stuff, he looked like he's about to start texting tongues. He shaking.
You speaking a word. Speaking a word.
Oh,
can't help nobody until you help yourself. Yeah.
Right. What's the next one, Jonas?
The next one is man, I forget the actual question. I didn't put it in here.
Is this the last one?
No, this is the one before last.
What can women do to help men?
No, we just did that one.
That's
I'll tell you in a second. Yeah.
The last one's a legacy question. This is the not what are you scared of, or what are the challenges that men have to deal with?
Yep. What do you think is the most difficult challenge that men face?
And so these are, it's being trusted. It's all about being trusted. Supporting a family.
Somebody said being a black man.
Yeah, it's being a black man. So it's like life in general. Like the challenge is, will I come home tonight?
I like
what this, balance.
Right, balance. And then someone else put overcoming their ego. That was good. Balance. And they put balance in big all cap letters.
Let you know.
Someone said giving respect first instead of waiting for a person to earn respect. And I think that's tough. Because like we're always taught like you gotta earn respect, and so but it's like this. No, if you're just respectful, you learn respect.
Yeah, that's so unbiblical.
Yeah,
That's like so unbiblical. And then we got sayings to contradict those sayings. Respect is due to a dog. Like, well, wait a minute. Yeah.
No, can we overcoming their own ego though, you guys? Because I think that's huge. Because a lot of men walk around like, I am man, hear me roar, respect my manness. And what you doing? Like, what if all that they're doing is existing though? Are you that goes back, this goes back to your first response as far as maleness or manless. When I think of ego, I think of, unfortunately, because because men are getting their definition of manhood and manliness from the world and not from the creator, what ends up happening is they conflate ego with dignity.
I would say on a smaller level, again, I'm gonna say most men get their identity of what a man is from the woman they're being raised by, whether it's mom, aunt, sister, right? And so they're not learning manhood from men. Mm-hmm. They're learning manhood from an outsourced agency.
Mm-hmm. Yep, facts.
That saw at some point and said, I like this, or I didn't like this part. They did everything great, but I didn't like this part. So, another piece, and also like, I'll say a PTSD of it is just like, it's things that they come along with manhood that position someone to do certain things because, like, going back to the whole Dr. Joy situation, it's like, hey, women would, or mothers would talk down on their children to prevent them from being raped or sold, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you hear someone talking down on you the whole time, but you don't understand the context, and even if you do understand the context, it doesn't change the emotional abuse that happens. And so, yeah, I don't know how we are on time, so I didn't want to go.
Yeah, we about to wrap it up, but I definitely agree. Dante, did you want to add anything to that?
I just think the ego piece. I think the ego piece sometimes compensates for. To echo a little bit what Jonas said, sometimes compensates for what men don't have. There's an ego that may be formed. That you're like, okay, this is what it's like to be a man holistically, even though it's just a patch job of stuff that you may have learned from entertainment, education, and different people's families. You put it all together, and now you're like, this is who I am, Dante. And this ego is what you carry because it's the only thing that you have that looks close enough to a whole man. There's a really good brother named Malik Blade who wrote a book called The Whole Brother. And I'm blown away. Anyone that I knew that's a man for Christmas, that's what you get. I ain't getting nothing else. That book is amazing. And I think it really talks about a lot of the things we talked about tonight.
I think you should get them also narrow-minded. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. It's gonna be a double whammy because I just asked for the vote price. I'm gonna get them double whammy.
There you go. I'm just saying. There's the plug.
And that's it's gonna be just like this. Whole brother, narrow-minded.
That's right. My professor said, were you finished, Dante? I'm sorry.
Yes, I was finished.
My professor said, and I will never forget it, and I believe it to be true, because like truth kind of hits you. She said, our deepest deficiencies become our greatest desires. And that's true. That's true when we look at ourselves. That's true when we try to look at our friends. That's true. Parents are the North Star of our lives. They either tell us where to go or where not to go. And when you parent from the negative, when you base your life on the negative, so if you had an absentee parent and you just know, I know what not to do, that's not necessarily telling you where to go. So you kind of stammer around. You kind of make it up as you go. That's why it's important to have mentorship, to have eldership, to have people like Jonas spoke about, having an old head that's going to check you and speak life to you when you can't see certain things. There's a Ghanaian proverb that says the youth run the road, but the elders know the way. Last question.
Basically is, what kind of legacy should a man leave?
All right.
I think of one of my favorite albums when Kanye was like, it was a Kanye album, an interlude, and the guy was like, Dad, what if like my dad didn't do much for me. He stayed in school, and when he left me with all his degrees. So while I'm outside in the cold, I have all these degrees, right? Mm. And I'm like this, and I'm like, no, like, and for me, I'm like, the legacy a man leaves is, it should encompass several realms, right? So like, yes, you should leave knowledge and understanding to your children. You should leave some type of inheritance to your children, and some direction on where to go. So I think essentially what Dante was saying earlier was just like finding out your purpose and why you're here, who placed you here, and then it's like, now that you know these things, here are some resources that help you on the rest of your journey since I'm gone.
Yeah, that's good, Jonas. You know, I'm gonna go to Jesus, man. The legacy that a man leaves is other leaders. It doesn't matter in what facet of leadership, but a legacy that a man leaves is other leaders, and by his direct impact on every single area that he hits, things change and people get to blossom into being exactly who they are and how they were made. And that's, I mean, I just think that's the way, because when possessions and investments fail, when folks don't apply the knowledge, if you have encapsulated your impact in another person and they are allowed to lead effectively and start families or start businesses or start whatever, your legacy lives on. I think that's the biggest thing you can do. I think as a man, that's the legacy that we should often seek to leave.
Great.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sister.
Something that really impacted me over the summer when Chadwick Boseman passed away. I was trying to figure out how to process with my students and just processing it myself. And I think what came to me was he lived in such a way that left a legacy, challenging others to live in such a way that will leave a legacy. I think when you do that, you continue it on. So I think it's more than just leaving something to people, but leaving people that will leave something for others.
Right. And I do think to somebody, Tamora spoke about, in order to talk about Black parenting, which kind of connects to legacy. A lot of times you've been talking about parenting. We have to put in the context about what happened to us in our country. And I do think that the brokenness that we often speak of doesn't just come from the brokenness of the homes and the family, but that's connected also to the brokenness and slavery. And some more, I kind of touched on that a bit earlier. There are many ways that we are broken. We've been broken since Genesis 3. And I'm not going to minimize the sin of racism, and I'm not also going to maximize it. I'm going to put it in its proper context and say part of the reason why Black homes are a key portion of it, of why it's broken, is because of systemic racism and how that has played into what it is that the decisions that we feel like we had to make, but there is also individual responsibility. It's almost, it reminds me of really quick, remember when Chris Rock and his comedy special in '96, when he was saying, racist white people hate N-words. He said, but Black people hate N-words too. He said, because when I'm at the Mac machine and we want to talk about how, racism and it's the media that set all this up. He said, it ain't the media robbing me. It's the N-words robbing me. So I'm saying that the way, I think that we've overgeneralized certain things and to many degrees to kind of absolve people of their individual responsibilities. And I'm saying, and I speak about this often, I believe that there are different systems and intersections that deal with racism, and part of it has to do with our personal responsibility and where we fall into that. And yes, people are conditioned, but even I remember watching Maya Angelou, she said at some point your inner knower knows what's right and wrong, and you make a decision to choose. Now, we could talk about how you were put in that precarious position. You were set up to lose. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, but you still choose. At the end of the day, you still choose. And that's a really difficult conversation that we need to unpack because it has multiple levels and great nuance to it. But I don't want to negate people's individual responsibility or dismiss the impact of systemic racism. I believe two things can be true because we have nuance. And to touch on what Dante said as it pertains to legacy, I believe that I agree wholeheartedly in that to leave a legacy is to leave, and Jonas kind of spoke about this too, and Crystal, when they spoke about children or ministries or people or that have impact, because what I know about men is that a man could not have a job, a man could not have a ministry, he could be impotent, he could not have any children, and he could still be a man flourishing in who God has called him to be.
Yeah.
He is more than what he can create physically. He is more than what he can dominate physically. He is a human that is created in the image of God that has purpose. Mm-hmm. And I think that because we have reduced people to what they can do for us, what they can produce, and that also touches on systemic racism, from seeing men as bucks and talking about men as being strong and doing all of these things in order to make it seem like they had these genes that could dominate. All of those things are very base level demonic structures that have been manipulated in order to pervert the Imago Dei. So on that note, does anyone have anything else they want to say? Or if not, we're going to wrap it up. And please remember, get the book. Hold it up, Brother Dante. Hold up the book.
One more again for the audience. Narrow-minded, a 31-day challenge.
Bring it close to the camera. Bring it close to the camera. All right, there you go. There you go. Boom.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dante. We definitely got to come back and talk about some other things. As per usual, thank you, Jonas, Jay, and Crystal Clear. This is Honestly Speaking, and talk to you later. Remember, love God, love your neighbor, and definitely take care of yourself. Wait. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, or like, subscribe, and then share, or share it, but make sure that you like, subscribe first. All right? Peace.